a preteen hitman.
What made it so easy for me to stab somebody is that I put the face of my father on every single one of my victims.
And then a hit is put on him.
He says, I can't do it. Whatever you're doing, I'll roll with you.
Plus, Ephraim Graham shares his top 5 trending stories from Studio 5. All that and more on today's 700 Club Interactive. Well, welcome to the show. Here's Ephraim Graham with this week's top 5 stories from Studio 5.
At number 5. Kanye West's weekly Sunday service gets more attention, this time from David Letterman, who attended one of the very first.
Indeed, it was a Sunday service, and it was, I feel odd invoking the word spiritual, but in fact, it had that effect on me. It was touching. You don't expect to find anything like that in Burbank, first of all, but that's another story.
Letterman sat down with Kanye for his Netflix series, My Next Guest Needs No Introduction.
What is the mechanism that is malfunctioning or is taking a break in your brain? Do you know?
I wouldn't be able to explain that as much, just, because I'm not a doctor. I can just tell you what I'm feeling at the time. It is a health issue. This is like a sprained brain, like having a sprained ankle.
At number 4. At number 4, Anthony Evans releases a follow-up to his See You Again hit with a new album titled Altered. And as it reaches the number 1 spot, the singer is sharing health news about his mom, who was diagnosed with a rare form of cancer. He tells the Christian Post, "She looks great, she feels great, and we're just hoping the next doctor's report is a reflection of how she looks and feels right now." At number 3.
This is Jeopardy!
2 big headlines for Jeopardy fans.
James Holzhauer's 32-game winning streak has been snapped by librarian Emma Betcher. That happened on Monday's show. Holzhauer did win more than $2 million in total and was closing in on Ken Jennings' record of $2.5 million.
Well, as you just saw, ladies and gentlemen,
Even bigger news and answered prayers for Jeopardy's longtime host.
Alex Trebek announced his advanced pancreatic cancer diagnosis back in March, but is doing much better than expected. The 78-year-old Jeopardy host says his doctors say he's responding very well to chemotherapy and is near remission.
At number 2. Rapper Pitbull lends his voice to a concert and raises $1 million to help the family of a Florida police officer.
This event honoring Orlando police officer Kevin Valencia. Officer Valencia is still in a coma after being shot during a domestic violence call nearly 1 year ago.
You are doing a benefit concert for Officer Kevin Valencia. What sparked that?
What sparked that, to be honest with you, is, for one, anything that we could do for the community, we always get involved, That's why we built the schools, SLAM, and that happened by default. Crazy enough. So it goes to show you, I get involved with certain things and go, whoa, how did this happen? So I didn't really hear about the story until after, with all the craziness that we got going on. I do feel in neighborhoods, there's a big disconnect from the officers to the folks in the neighborhood. I've lived it myself.
At number 1.
Yeah, it's dark right now, but I still see the light. Come on.
14-time Grammy winner Kirk Franklin releases his much-anticipated new album, Long Live Love. He sits down with Studio 5 just before the music drops.
Do you have a prayer or wish for the new project?
Yo, man, that is a brilliant question. Yes. I have a prayer that I've written out.
It's a prayer he wrote in January, about 5 months before the album's release.
It says, Holy Spirit, I bring my soul to the cross. I am powerless to live for you in my own strength. The temptation to worship this music, to make it my identity, to use it to fuel my sinful brokenness and pride, to contaminate and abuse it for my own glory, to be a slave to the emotions of whatever your will is for it. I surrender it all to you now. The emotional crash I feel if it doesn't impress everyone with sales, I'm asking you, Lord, for the supernatural power to rejoice no matter what you allow. Please, God, divorce my heart from what was and enable me the grace to accept what is. I'm tired of being a prisoner to the past trophies and earthly crowns. So I exchanged my heart for yours, to die to myself, my will, and my desires, so that you may wear me today as your garment of mercy. In faith, I do all of this. Amen.
That's a pretty incredible statement from Kirk.
Absolutely.
What do you think of the new album?
It is really, really good. Phenomenal work. I listened to it. It came out just last week. I listened to it for the first time pretty much all of Saturday morning, and the same heart-penetrating music. One of my favorites is sort of a moving, dancing one because it helps my workout. It's like, it's going to be okay, regardless of what you're going through, it's going to be okay. That was the very first question I asked him in terms of that prayer. And he's got all these awards, and you see in that prayer that he really wants to separate himself from all the accolades and not. And he really, I watched several interviews, he brushes that question off and like, you know, that doesn't really matter. And he, I think, tweeted even just this morning, he goes, the love of Jesus is the prize. The music is just the icing on the cake. That it's the love that I really want people to feel in the songs that I sing.
He's really going deep then. I mean, that's not just,
no.
He is saying everything else doesn't matter.
Right. Absolutely. Everything else doesn't matter. It's the love of Christ that I'm trying to bring to people. And he makes a point saying, you know, not only am I trying to bring it to believers, but I want to reach non-believers and people who believers have cast aside and criticized, including he and Kanye West are really good friends, and he defends him. There was a gospel artist who just a little while ago sort of blasted the church and criticized, you know, really badly. And Kirk Franklin came to her side and defended her, saying, okay, now, yeah, the church may have hurt you, but I want us to be cautious, you know, to not chastise her and throw her under the bus for this, that we now respond in love and realize that we all struggle, we all face difficulty. Let's not be so quick to throw people away.
Wow.
Yeah, very powerful, very powerful.
All right, you brought up Kanye. Here he is having church services in Burbank. David Letterman is attending. What do you make of all that?
You know, he's been criticized some for the services because he's not a preacher, of course. So
everybody's
he's not ordained and licensed by the church.
You're preaching
Absolutely.
Or not.
What message
Everybody
are you
is a preacher.
You're right. But he's done this because he literally researched music, lyrics, talked to people like Kirk Franklin, reached out to, you know, went to other churches to study what they did, and wanted to do this in sort of just an open, free setting, really for friends and people he knows. Everyone, when I visit LA, everyone's trying to get a ticket or an invitation to Kanye's Sunday service because it's by invitation only. Everyone's trying to get a ticket because everyone who attends comes back and saying, wow, it's just such a beautiful experience. And the video clips that you see, I mean, they're simply singing music that we sing in church, you know, worship, but for many.
Some of it seems like improv.
Yeah, he's naturally, that's what he does. He, you know, he makes beats and he improvises. But a lot of the songs, their bass are in the tradition that we all know. But for many people who didn't grow up with this is their first time experiencing it. And I venture to say that whenever you call upon the name of the Lord and, you know, you're all there unified, he responds. Yes, as we see. I mean,
he listens to the cries of his children.
Absolutely. And David Letterman saying, you know, I'm there and I don't really understand this. I didn't expect, you know, he attended like the very second one that Kanye had and was obviously visibly shaken and moved by the experience.
I think it's an untold story. David Letterman grew up in church.
Right.
His mother was a church secretary.
Absolutely.
But I'll take the other side. I'll be the critique, if you will. Not that I want to fulfill that role.
Yes, I understand.
The accuser of the brethren.
No.
What do you take? Some of his stuff has some mixture in it where he talks about chakras and some. What do you make of that?
You know, Kanye himself grew up with a mom who was certainly a believer. And as he has grown up and lost her, I mean, he's been searching for something for quite some time. And I believe he's just got this open attitude that all of it is good. And I think Jesus in the end will win out.
Always does.
Yeah, always does. But I'm
He's
thinking,
the one that conquered sin and death.
I remember my days of experimentation and not really sure. And I think he's going through that. And not to mention, I mean, he opened up about his mental illness. That also plays a part in it for him. He's bipolar, under doctor's care, and he's struggling there as well. And if you knew Kanye before the death of his mother or followed him before and after, there's a drastic difference. And I believe he's still very much in mourning about that
Very
loss.
much an anchor in his life.
Absolutely.
You hear his life story, and she's the one. And Dad was there too.
Yeah.
And real big influence on him. But Mom was
there.
Mom was the anchor.
Mom was there.
Usually, Mom is the glue of the family. Yeah. And when you lose that, you lose something very precious.
Yeah, and he lost her suddenly and unexpectedly. So that was sad.
All right, Pitbull. Speaking of rappers, he's doing some good now.
Very good. I mean, $1 million. And he said, he didn't really know the police officer's story because he was already going to do the concert. And then as, the planners of the concert are making plans for this, they realized this is something that could benefit this officer's family. He was shot tragically June 11th last year. He's responding to a domestic violence call. The person on the inside shoots from the inside of the apartment through the door, and he gets hit and has been in a coma ever since. That man ultimately killed himself and his 4 children. So it's a really horrible story when people hear about this, realizing his wife is now left alone to fend for herself. This was an opportunity to help her and to help him in terms of medical care. He spent lots of time outside of Florida. He's now back in Florida, but still in a coma, but at least now accessible to his wife. And these will help cover some of those expenses.
It just seems surprising. You see his public persona in his videos, and it just doesn't come across. He's there to party and do that.
Yeah.
And here he is now saying, I want to raise money for someone who's helpless and can't care for themselves.
Absolutely.
I want to be a part of it. Why do you think he's doing it?
I think that's his heart. From the brief time that I spent with him, this is just one thing that we're able to highlight. But I mean, he's done things in terms of schools for children, things that he doesn't typically go public with. Because I was there to talk to him about a movie, but I knew that he was doing this. And while people hadn't talked about it, I'm like, so you are doing this too. He's very shy and bashful about talking about the charitable things he does. He really enjoys just being the party man, but he's not.
It's almost like it's a marketing thing.
Yeah.
And the real person is completely different.
It is.
And you get to the real person and you go, wow, why don't you advertise that?
He's got a huge
maybe
heart.
That doesn't sell as much. I do charity concerts.
Yes, but the party sells. So he does that, but he's using his platform for good too.
All right. Well, for all the latest in entertainment news, check out Ephraim's weekly show, Studio 5. You can watch it on the CBN News Channel or online at cbn.com/Studio5. And Ephraim will be back with us next week.
See you next week.
Well, coming up, an 8-year-old plots his first crime, the murder of his abusive father.
My hope was that he would fall asleep and never wake up. And my mom walked in, and I remember turning to her and telling her, just leave it alone, I'll take the blame.
See how he had a change of heart. That's up next, right after this. Before Casey Diaz even hit his teens, he was in a gang and had a need for respect. He also had a thirst for blood, so stabbing his first victim was easy for him. He just pictured he was stabbing his father.
I remember trying to push his face towards the gas, where the gas was released, and I turned the gas on.
Casey Diaz was a mere 8 years old when he decided to kill his father using a portable gas heater.
And my mom walked in on it. It freaked her out. What's going on? And I remember turning to her and telling her, just leave it alone, I'll take the blame. My hope was that he would fall asleep and never wake up.
His dad was a violent, abusive alcoholic.
He would start literally beating my mom right in front of me. I recall seeing her in a closet in her own blood, and there's nothing that you can do. I remember in one occasion him grabbing me by the shoulders, bringing me close to him, and he says to me, don't ever call me your dad. Don't ever call me dad. And then I remember just feeling a sense of emptiness. You feel worthless. You feel like, why are you even here? I became angry. I became very angry.
Casey would find purpose in a South Central LA gang. He easily became violent, stabbing his first victim at just 11 years old.
What made it so easy for me to stab somebody is that I put the face of my father on every single one of my victims.
More victims would follow, as did a lengthy rap sheet. He rose up in the gang world, feared and hunted by rival gangs. At 16, Casey was sentenced to 12 years in a juvenile correction facility for second-degree murder and 52 counts of armed robbery. He ruled the gang-infested prison until he attacked another inmate.
I strangled him almost to death.
That landed him in solitary confinement at New Folsom State Penitentiary. One day, a Christian woman, Frances, came by to invite him to a monthly Bible study.
You're crazy. What are you talking about? Bible study. And I'm going, she's nuts. She doesn't know who she's talking to. And she says, I'm gonna be praying for you. And I'm putting you on my prayer hit list. She uses that word. I said, you could do whatever you want, that's fine. I said, but I'm letting you know right off the bat, not interested in your Bible study or whatever religious thing that you're in.
Every month for a year, she came by and Casey declined. But each time, her response was the same.
And she would always say to me, I'm praying for you, and Jesus is going to use you.
In his second year of solitary, he was awake, lying in his bunk.
And all of a sudden, I start seeing what looks like a movie reel. I'm seeing footage that only I know from me growing up. And it starts to go into some details from like the first thing that I ever stole from a 7-Eleven to cars that I stole to the first stabbing that I partook of.
Then a different scene appeared.
I could see a man carrying this cross, and I saw the nails on his hands and his feet.
The man addressed Casey by a name.
My birth name's Darwin, and he says, Darwin, I did this for you. And I could hear in my cell, audibly, his breath leaving him. I hit the center of that floor and wept, weeping uncontrollably, sobbing, and telling God, I'm so sorry for stabbing this person and stabbing this person over here. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know what was happening, but I knew that something had happened here. Like there was this freedom that I had never experienced in my life.
Casey says Jesus told him to talk to the prison chaplain.
He said, what happened in the cell is what happened in the cell. God has already forgiven you. This is why you feel so free.
He prayed with the chaplain to accept Christ.
It was God dealing with me on a one-on-one basis and removing that desire of wanting to hurt people. It just went away supernaturally.
But Casey's faith would be tested. Now 18, he was released from solitary, and a hit was placed on his head for becoming a Christian and leaving the gang. One day, an inmate came to his cell with a knife.
And he says, I can't do it. I can't do this. I can't do this to you. He says, but whatever you're doing, I'll roll with you. And he became the first person. The first person I led to the Lord was the guy that was assigned to do the hit.
The hit was removed, and for the remaining 5 years of his sentence, Casey would lead over 200 inmates to Christ. At age 25, Casey was released. In time, he forgave his dad, who eventually gave his life to Christ as well. Today, Casey owns a successful sign business and lives in LA with his family.
Coming to Christ is and will always be the best decision that any man could ever make. He is so relentless in his pursuit of us. He's constantly, you might not notice it right away, but God is after the sinner. But his favor and his mercy and his grace, it just floors you.
And it'll floor you too when you finally get in touch with Him and His mercy, His love, His forgiveness, what He's able to cover, what He's able to forgive, what He's able to restore. It's all a miracle. And believe that it was for you. Casey heard a voice calling him by his birth name, Darwin. I did this for you. I saw you. And the Bible mentions this. The Bible says in Isaiah chapter 53, when He offers His soul as a sacrifice for sin, He shall see His descendants and be satisfied. It's amazing. We're actually satisfying Him on the cross. He's seeing it. He's able to see through time, to see you and say, it's all worth it. My sacrifice is worth it. My blood shed for you is worth it because you now get to be with me for all eternity. Now for Casey, he grew up the hard way. Father's incredibly abusive. To come home and see your mother covered in her own blood. Where do you go with that? What do you do with that? To hear your father say, I never want you to ever call me father. I don't want to ever hear that from you. Where do you go with that? As a young child, how do you even have the means to even process what it means? Well, you don't. And in that, you can get imprinted with a personality that's not yours. For Casey, it caused him to be very violent. And he envisioned he was stabbing his father when he was out doing horrible things to other people because it imprints. Now, maybe you've had that happen to you. But the good news is all of that can change, and you can change from your innermost being, have new breath, new life, and realize the life that Jesus shed for you is so that you can have it. You can have His life. You can have His breath in you. You can do things His way. And it's a transformation that miracle is the only word you can give to it. It's a miracle. He takes people that the world has thrown away. He takes prisoners, and while they're still in prison, He sets them free. He can do that for you. All you have to do is ask. And the prayer is very simple. Jesus, if you're there, if you died for me, if you came for me, could you show me? Could you show up for me? And if you pray that with all of your heart, He'll answer. He'll be there for you. If you need help with that prayer, we're here for you. All you have to do is pick up the phone and call us and say, I need to find Jesus. I need to find Him today. Would you help me? It would be our honor and our privilege to pray with you. When you call, we've got something free for you. It's called A New Day. It's a CD teaching. How do you live the Christian life? What do you do? What do Christians believe? We also have something, if you're struggling with anger, just as Casey was, Overcoming Anger. It's a free booklet for you. We can send it to you right now as a PDF file. It'll give you keys if you're struggling with anger and all the ramifications of that. We want to help you, and we want to do it free of charge. All you have to do is call 1-800-700-7000. Well, still to come, a 6-year-old refugee fleeing the humanitarian crisis in Venezuela.
We didn't have food for the whole day. It was really bad.
See how Operation Blessing is helping him and many others when we come back. Joel is a 6-year-old boy from Venezuela. He's seen his family struggle with hunger and a lack of medical care. His government couldn't help out, but thankfully, Operation Blessing was there.
My name is Joel Alexander Melo Rojas, and I'm 6 years old. I'm with my mom, aunt, and all my cousins. We don't want to be hungry anymore. I don't want to stay here because we have been through hunger, and I don't like that. I don't want to be hungry. I like to eat because I want to grow up. On our way to Bogota, no one gave us a ride because there's a lot of people. One time, we didn't have any food, nothing to eat. My little sister told my mom, Mommy, I'm hungry. And I told her the same thing. She answered, we don't have any food. And that was it. We didn't have food for the whole day. It was really bad. It was hurting here, my knees, my ankles, and my little toes for walking so much with these shoes. I tell my mom, let's sit here, but she doesn't want to. The doctor checked my chest, here, my feet, and my toes. He gave me medicine, pills for a headache, a remedy. I feel very happy. I didn't see a doctor for 3 years. I asked God that when we are walking, nothing bad would happen to us. That when we are on the road, He will be with us.
It's one of the greatest humanitarian crises we've seen in the Western Hemisphere. Literally millions of people are leaving Venezuela. They need help. They need food. They need basic medical care. They need a path forward. They need a future. They need a hope. They need to know that people still love them. God loves them. So we're there in your name. If you want to give to the Operation Blessing Disaster Relief Fund, you can write to us or you can call us right now, 1-800-700-7000. And here's a word to consider from Proverbs: the generous soul will be made rich, and he who waters will also be watered himself. God bless you. We'll see you again.